So welcome back to this session of Part of Real Women Sharing Big Stories Online Summit. So I would love to introduce you to now Diane. She's a business strategist and I love everything you do. So I'm super excited about this. And the topic is stepping into your superpower, which is, I'm intrigued. So I'm going to add it to you, Diane.
Hello, ladies. So I just want to say I'm comfortable if you want to come onto video. Do you know what I mean? Like Natalie, stay on video. Kirsten, if you want to come onto video. The other lady, I don't speak Hebrew, so I can't say your name, but I'm sure you're welcome to come onto video. I prefer to have people on video. I'm also happy to answer any questions as we go along. You know, very often people have prepped and then they don't want you to ask anything, all right? I'm not really like that. I like interaction and I like people to ask. So I wanted to just say that I've managed to catch a couple of the other sessions. I caught Magdalena earlier live. I've watched Paula's session that she did, okay. And I listened to Rachel also earlier this morning. I managed to catch some of Rachel's stuff. And I think that although we don't know each other, all right, we know Dana, and that is the commonality between all of us. I can see an absolute golden thread going through every presentation that's been given, every talk that's been given. You know what I mean? There's kind of this little golden thread that's going through, and hopefully I continue that golden thread. So I'm hoping that I do. So I want to say to you that the first thing I want you to realize is that unlike what some people on the internet tell you, you do not just wake up one day and know what your superpower is. It is not like the fairy of all knowledge comes and taps you on the side of the head and says, yeah, is your superpower, all right? And this is now how to use it. So that's part of my message, all right? Your superpower is very often based on your own evolution. And you will find that at different times in your evolution or your elevation of yourself is that you will find that you have different superpowers, right? And often your superpowers are revealed through adversity, not when things are going well, right? Often revealed to you through adversity, the adverse things that you go through, which is what a lot of people tend to avoid talking about. Do you know what I mean? They talk about all the amazing stuff, but they don't talk about adversity. So how I'm going to go work today with you is I've got a couple of slides. I'm not going to show them yet. I'll show you just now. We're going to keep it quite interactive. I'm going to take you on my journey to really discovering some of my superpowers, all right? And I'm going to start with 3 stories of adversity, all right? Because I want you to understand those 3 fundamental stories, and then I can take you into how did I journey through those 3 stories, and how did I then evolve or elevate to begin to figure out what my superpower is. So the first one was and I know Donna will know exactly what this is, all right, but I will explain for some other people in case you don't, right? So in corporate, you have something called a 360 review, all right? And it is quite scary to do this because what happens is you're being measured on your performance, but your clients are measuring your performance, your colleagues are measuring your performance, you're measuring your performance, and your line manager is measuring your performance, all right? And in my case, my senior leadership team was measuring performance. And for Haley and Lee who've joined us, if you feel like coming on video, then please put on your video. So I was feeling super pumped up, okay? Like super pumped up because I had seen all the other reviews of me and now I was just walking into my line manager review and everybody else had rated me really, really highly. And I kind of rated myself a little bit down because, you know, you don't want to look like you egotistical or anything. So I walk into the review and you know when you saunter into somewhere because you like know that it's going to be good, you know, like, yes, like it's going to be good. So ladies who don't know me, I swear very badly, all right. And I sit down And I've got all this review, and my then boss says to me, looks at everything, says, this is all amazing, all right, this is all amazing, but I don't agree with any of it. And I look at him, and he literally drops the bomb on my head, and he uses 5 words, which knocked me sideways, all right? And those 5 words were, you lack the killer instinct. You lack the killer instinct, all right? And I sat in that room not knowing what to do, right? It was like my entire world had just crumbled, because everybody else was telling me I was doing things well. I had, in actual fact, just won one of the biggest tenders ever awarded in South Africa in the industry we worked in. I'd built a really phenomenal team. I had grown clients massively in terms of revenue and stuff. Yet, I was being told, you lack the killer instinct, right? And it rocked me to my core. It literally rocked me to my core. And I walked out there going, what the fuck am I going to do? Do you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to come back from this? And I did for a while. I tried to come back from it. And it just, you know, when something eats at you, ladies, has anybody ever had that happen to them? You know, somebody says something to you and it literally eats at you. It's like, and even for me to remember those words today, it took a very long time for me to be able to articulate those words to other people, because I felt like a complete failure. Do you know what I mean? Like, you lack the killer instinct. I've got perspective, and I'll come back to the perspective later. Right. So that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 was that I collaborated with somebody quite a lot, right? And the next 2 are really in terms of when I was in my own business already, right? And I've been through a number of business evolutions, exactly the same as some of you watching this, all right? The business you have today is not the business you started with. And please, I want to just pause there and just put something in here, because I also say things I shouldn't say, all right? Those people that tell you on the internet that they made $100,000 in 6 months are talking absolute shit, okay? Because it's most probably their 5th business, and they learned all the lessons in the first 4, and now the 5th one is the one that they, you know what I mean? Like, because they learned everything, right? So anyway, second adversity story that came in terms of me starting to look at my superpower is this one. We had delivered a very successful project at a client, and we were celebrating. And the person that I had worked quite heavily with in this project turned around and said to me, "You're such a chameleon." Now, it sounds like it should be a compliment, am I right? Like, you're such a chameleon, except it was not said in that tone of voice. It was said in the, you're such a chameleon. Do you know what I mean? And I don't like it. And again, I was like kind of rocked to my core again. Like, okay, so it's bad to be a chameleon. What? And again, I had the conversation with the person, like, what would you want me to do? And it was kind of, you need to niche. Do you know what I mean? You need to focus just on one thing and only do that one thing. How many people have been told that in this room? Tell me in the chat, or just put your hands up. All right. Yeah, just do one thing. All right. And that's what this person was telling me. And I was like, okay, do I take it to heart? What do I do? All right. My husband had a different perspective, and I'll share just now what my husband's perspective was. And then the third adversity came, and this one I've never really shared. So I've shared it in let's say one-to-one coaching when I've been dealing with senior executives and stuff, but I've never really shared it in a forum like this. And good God, it's going out onto YouTube. So, you know, now it's going to be all over the bloody internet. But anyway, but I was fired by somebody for being too nice. Right. Those were not the exact words that were used. Right. So what happened is that I was working with somebody, we were delivering a strategy at a client, because I am a business strategist. And we'd been there for 5 days with this client, right? And when we left on the 5th day, I left earlier and she stayed behind. And the client still hugged me goodbye, and I flew off in an aeroplane. All right, let's just put it like that. I flew into the Strat, I flew out of the Strat. And she said to me, because when you are mature and you work with people in the kind of work that I do, we always do a debrief afterwards, right? What worked, what didn't work, where can we improve? You know what I mean? Like always, what worked, what didn't work, where can we improve? And there's the first thing you can write down. Always, I do it every week, or I don't know, Friday, I ask myself those 3. So I ask myself 4 questions. I'll give you the 4 questions. What worked? Why did it work? What didn't work? Why didn't it work? Right? Where was my mindset an issue? And what do I change going forward next week? Right. Anyway, so those were kind of the things. And we did, and I was again on a high. Do you know what I mean? Like we delivered 5 days of incredible strategy to this client. They were so happy. We'd actually managed to unravel some stuff that wasn't, that kind of wasn't on our agenda, but it had come up and we needed to clear the air, you know what I mean? And we needed to do it. And she sent me a meeting request. And in those days, we didn't have Zoom, and we also didn't work, you know what I mean, in the same place. We met on Skype, right? By the way, does Skype even exist anymore? I have no idea. Okay, yes, some people are saying yes. I mean, I don't even know when last I went on Skype, right? So we get there, and she starts the conversation by saying to me, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation. And I'm like, okay. So I think, well, okay, so now I'm prepping myself. I can do uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? I can do uncomfortable. And she says, there's a couple of things I need to raise with you. And I'm like, okay, raise them. And she goes, can you hear my voice is even changing? I'm like, raise them, because I'm now thinking, in my head, I'm thinking, fuck, the client is upset. Do you know what I mean? Like the client is freaking out. We've done something wrong, whatever. And I ask her straight out, is it the client? And she's like, no, it's not the client, it's me that needs to have the uncomfortable conversation. And she raises 3 things with me, right? The first one is that while she was busy facilitating or presenting like this, right, just like this, I interrupted her. Okay. And she said to me, she found that completely disrespectful from my side. Now, if you want to just like have my heart shatter into a million pieces, just tell me that I'm disrespectful, because I'm a person who tries to respect everybody. I don't say I get it right. And I was like, what? Okay. And she said, yes, you disrespected me. And I said to her, okay, but do you realize why I interrupted you? You know, like what was behind me interrupting you? And she's like, I don't care what was behind you interrupting me. You don't ever do that again. So I was like, tick in the box. Okay, I won't ever do that again. All right. Okay. Second thing is that we were at lunch, right? And the chairman of the board and the CEO were talking to each other. And again, Nontando, put on your beautiful face. We need to see your beautiful face. So they were talking at lunch, and basically lunch was supposed to end at 1:30, right? I can't remember, 2 o'clock, 1:30, whatever. And again, she used those words. You disrespected me because I told them lunch ended at 1:30 and you let lunch run for another 10 minutes, right? And I was like, okay, but do you realize what they were discussing fundamentally changed what we were going to do with them? And her answer to me was, that's not our problem. We were put here to deliver something, all right? We were put here to deliver something, and this thing meant that we had to finish lunch to deliver it. And I was like, okay, all right. So now I'm getting in my head that this is a boundary issue. Does that make sense? It's like she feels as though I've encroached on her boundaries, right? Okay. The third one was that the client had called us by not a bad name. It wasn't a bad name in the least, but it's an endearment name that a lot of men in that country use to call women. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's it's the way that they, in their culture, refer to women, right? And I knew that she didn't like it. I knew that she didn't like it and she had an issue with it. And basically, in order to defuse the situation, I don't want to say a joke, it wasn't a joke, but when the client made the reference to us again, all right, I literally said, listen, please don't do that because she doesn't like it and we need to find another way for you to refer to us. And he was quite taken aback because in his culture, it's actually, like I said, a term of endearment, right? And again, her reality was that I had now disrespected her because it's her client. I was subcontracting into the client, all right? And she should have raised that. So can you see, ladies, complete boundary issue in this one, right? So my question to her was the following, right? What do I change in the way that I work? And I want you to hear what I asked, right? What do I change in the way that I work with you? Her answer to me was that I needed to change nothing in the way that I worked with her, that I was brilliant. The client was extremely happy, but I needed to change myself. Right. And I was like, okay, so what do you mean by I need to change myself? And you know, all three of the stories I've shared with you have this thing in common. Each one of those people wanted me to change myself to make them feel comfortable in the way they operate. Okay. So the first boss who told me you lack the killer instinct was very reacted by me because I did not do things in the way he did things or in the way that he had been taught success came to you, by being cutthroat. Do you know what I mean? By completely all the time driving for the sale. You know what I mean? Close the sale, close the sale, close the sale, all right? Lead with a very autocratic leadership style, right? A very autocratic leadership style. So when he told me that, but look, that took years of therapy. All of this has taken years of looking at myself, okay? In terms of that was what it was, right? He wanted me to become him because when I wasn't him, he felt uncomfortable, right? And then the next person, by telling me I was a chameleon, my husband opened that Pandora's box for me. Hi, Nia. My husband said this. He said, she, because you have an ability to become a chameleon, right? And she's wanting you to fit in the box that she has created for you, right? And the third person wanted me to put boundaries in place and be hard ass, okay, kick ass. Do you know what I mean? It's not my nature, right? And because I couldn't do that, the conversation ended with her saying, if you continue to be this nice, I can no longer work with you, right? Okay. So in all three of those situations, I began to question myself, all right? What is it about me that is potentially triggering other people? all right? And why am I being told to change myself? Do you know what I mean? Like, why am I, and I shouldn't say being asked, do you know what I mean? Actually, forced is most probably a better word than asked, right? So I wonder if some of you are in that situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, but where do I fit here? And I keep being asked to do things differently, or I keep looking on the internet and the way people are telling me to do stuff isn't the way that I do things. Is that anyone? We'll all have had it at some point in our business. Do you know what I mean? We all will have had it at some point, right? So I started to say, okay, in order for me to understand this, I'm going to have to understand myself, all right? And I'm going to have to go deep into myself. So I sit in a workshop 2 weeks later, and what happens in this workshop is that they show me 2 pictures, all right? And I'm going to show you these 2 pictures, and I'm going to ask you the questions. If you've seen the pictures before, you'll know the answer, so don't worry. You know what I mean? And I want you in the chat just to post for me straight away, what do you see first in that picture? And if you see 2 things at exactly the same time, then that's cool. You can put them both in, all right? I'm just giving everybody a chance that they can look at the picture. And I can't see my chat, so I'm just going to have to come out. There, I should be able to see now. Okay, so a man playing a trumpet, a man with a saxophone, a man playing a tuba, all right? A dude playing the sax and a woman's face, a man playing the saxophone, the face, all right? For many of you in here, you will struggle to see the lady's face, all right, okay? Because for anything like for this picture, we're always going to have the majority of people seeing the man playing the saxophone, right? So ladies, I just want to do something on my screen. I'm going to stop and then I'm going to come back in. I'm going to share it again and just do something so that I can show you where your face is. Okay. So basically, if I took a line and I drew, now if I could do it, it would be super helpful, wouldn't it? And I drew a line like that, and then I took another line. You see, my drawing's not good. That's why I need people like Natalie in my life. Okay. Now, if I drew that, that's the other part of her face. Her face resides in the white part of the picture. Here's her one eye. There's her other eye. There's her nose. There is her mouth, and there is the bottom of her chin. All right. Okay. So most of you saw the man first. Okay. For those of you who saw the man and the lady at the same time, go towards the lady's face, right? Second picture. Tell me what you see here. What do you see first here? Jennifer Brown's cheating because she's seen these before, I think. A lady looking upwards, okay. So again, we can see just in terms of the people just in this room, okay, that the majority of people are seeing the face, all right? I just want you to know that I have shared these pictures, all right? into rooms of, I think the biggest room I've ever shared those 2 pictures into was 350 people, right? And out of 350 people, most of them saw, you know what I mean, the guy with the saxophone and the face, all right? There were very few people who saw the Eskimo, as some people said, and the lady's face, right? Now, here's the $1 million question. How many of you saw the lady's face in the first picture and you saw the Eskimo or the person walking through a door in the second picture? Hands up if that was you. Donna, all right, and Jen. Welcome to being the troublemakers. Okay. And Labo. And Labo is definitely a troublemaker, all right. So the reality is that these are not just pictures. And when I sat in that room, I think we were 100 people in that room, if I'm not mistaken. And I think out of the 100 people, guess what? I was the only person who saw the lady's face and the Eskimo. And the person said exactly what I've just said. If you were there, you're the troublemaker. And I was like, no, I don't want to be the troublemaker. I want to be like everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Like, what? Why? Why is this now happening to me again that I'm being told that I'm, you know what I mean? Like, and I took it negatively, right? So I'll just debrief the pictures for you very, very quickly, right? Because they're not really, they're pictures, but they have meanings beyond those pictures. And I often use these pictures with clients, all right? I use them often with clients to get to know them a little bit better, right? Or even for themselves to know themselves a little bit better. So if we go back to the first picture, I'm just going to go back to the first one for you. If you saw the man with the trumpet first, okay, you have what we call foreground perspective, all right? You deal with what's in front of you, okay? If I really made it very, very simplistic, you take things at face value, all right? So what happens is, and I always use an interview process because it's the easiest way for people to understand it. So when somebody comes to an interview with a very good CV, all right, you take the CV at face value and you're looking for the person to prove you wrong. All right. So the way that you listen and the way you maneuver and go through life is looking for that. I'm taking at face value, prove me wrong. All right. Okay. If the person walks into the interview and they dress beautifully and they answer the questions well and they do everything well, you're feeling very comfortable because you've got foreground perspective. You're dealing with what's in front of you. Now to the ladies who saw the face, like me, all right. We have got background perspective, all right. So what we do is we move what's in front of us out the way and we walk behind what's there without even realizing what we're doing, and we question everything, right? So what that means is that when we're in that same interview, this person has to prove us right, okay? They have to prove us right and they've got to prove you wrong, right? Can you see how we're completely on opposite ends of the scale? So I will take a CV, I will look at a CV, I will look at you and I will say straight to the person who's on the interview panel with me, the CV is too good to be true. There's something wrong here. Okay, or the person answers the question in a really, really encompassing way, and I'm like, something's not right here. My tummy is tickling. I always call it my tummy's tickling. My tummy's tickling, all right? Because what's happening is I'm not reading the same stuff that you are, and I'm not even realizing what I'm reading. If you ask me, I'm like, I don't know. Okay, I have no idea. So I'll tell you that my friends use it, my friends that are divorced and stuff, they use it when they meet new men, for me to meet the men. And they ask me what my stomach tells them, okay? Because I'm looking, can you see how we're looking at things completely differently? So we get to the end of the interview and you who saw the saxophone player will say, let's employ him. And I'll go, no, I'm not comfortable. And you'll go, why? And I'll go, there's just something. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It's just something. All right. Okay. And we're in the minority. Do you know what I mean? We're in the minority. And then the second picture is all about problem solving, right? It's all around problem solving, how we solve problems. I'm going to apologize for my dogs. Just give me 1 second. Is if you saw the face, you know, the face that's kind of looking up, all right? You problem solve in a specific way. You put the problem in the middle and you work from the outside inwards to solve that problem. So you're quite systematic in the way that you solve this problem, all right? And everything, you're thinking everything, and it's not about thinking inside or outside of the box, just so that you understand. It's just the way that you're solving it. You're systematic, but your focus is on the problem, this problem we're solving. So we're going to do this, and it'll help solve part of this problem. We're going to do that, it'll help solve parts of this problem. We do A, B, C, we solve this problem, all right? So you're working like in a frame. If you had a frame, you know what I mean? You framed the problem. That's what I always call it. And you're working outside inwards. Then there's those of you who saw the Eskimo or the person walking into the, you know, into the doorway or painting or whatever. Guess what? You take the problem in the middle, and I always do it, so I'll do it with you. You take the problem in the middle, and here's the problem, and you chuck it away, okay, all right? And you work from the inside outwards, and there's no frame, all right? So what happens in your brain is you are not systematic. You are systems thinkers, which means that you can see how this thing integrates into a whole lot of other systems, all right? And if you fix something in that system down there, it'll fix something in the system over here. But now you're the lone voice in the wilderness, right? Because your whole team can see everything. They like, shut the fuck up. Stop, don't talk, all right? Don't talk. Now we can see, if we put those two together, you're the troublemaker, all right? And you're the troublemaker because you're different. And the less confidence you have in your difference, the less you're willing to stand in your difference. So, I mean, when I had this revealed to me, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And my then boss was sitting next to me, and he burst out laughing. And I said to him, why are you laughing? And he said to me, because that's your biggest strength. Okay, your biggest strength is the fact that you are able to see stuff that the rest of us have no idea. He says, we don't often know what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? We're like, what the hell is this woman on? All right. It's like I have all tabs open everywhere in my brain. And he's like, but it's your biggest strength and your greatest weakness. All right. And I said, why is it my greatest weakness? And he's like, because you work in an environment that does not celebrate that. It celebrates being the same, right? Okay. So I began to realize that I'm a chaos causer, all right? I have an ability, one of my superpowers is to cause chaos, right? Because I can see things that other people can't. I see in patterns. I don't see in the same way other people see. I can see something happening way before it is. I, in actual fact, have just worked with a client for the last 3 weeks where I'm seeing the pattern, okay, and they were not able to see the pattern until I started to ask them some questions. And then when the pattern revealed itself, then I had to kind of pick the CEO up off the floor, put him back on the chair, give him some calming tablets and say, okay, don't worry, now let's figure out how we're going to fix this. Do you know what I mean? Like it's happened, it's fine, just get on with it now, all right? But I still was left thinking, okay, so I'm a troublemaker stroke chaos causer, and that's my superpower. Do you know what I mean? But is it really my superpower? Is it really, or is it part of my superpower? And I really began to question myself around, where did this come from? Do you know what I mean? Like, where did this ability that I had come from? And where did this ability that I kept on where I was told you're not the killer instinct, you know what I mean? You're the chameleon, you're all these things. I began to sit down and think, where does this come from? Okay. And at that point in my business, I was then in my own business, I was going through a metamorphosis in my business around what do I bring to the table that's different to other people. Like, I don't want to be the cookie cutter. None of us want to be the cookie cutter. Do you know what I mean? But how do we figure out what we bring that's different? And I had to go way, way back. And that's my third slide, right? I had to go way back to the beginning. And this is the beginning. I had to go backwards to go forwards, right? And I had to go back all the way to the beginning. And this picture is the picture of where I grew up. Okay. I did not grow up in a house. I grew up in a hotel. I grew up with a mother who had 2 businesses of her own, all right? And a grandmothers on both sides who had their own businesses. I want you to think about a hotel. Do you go to a hotel and you stay there for a long time? Not particularly, am I right? You go in and you might stay 1 night. You might stay 2 nights, right? I was like, okay, that's interesting. And when I broke it down, I was like, okay. And my parents loved to share the story of how by the age of 5, I was able to answer the switchboard, right? I had a telephone voice that sounded older than my voice. So I would literally answer the phone. Winter Hotel, good day, how can I help you? And they would ask for my mom. My mom's name was Myrtle. They'd ask, like, can they speak to Myrtle or whatever? And I couldn't read or write, okay? But I knew how to take a pen and paper to somebody else and ask them in a very nice way, can you write the message for my mom, please? Okay, and then they'd write it down and then I would give it to my mom. By the age of 7, I was taking people to their rooms. Do you know what I mean? I was like saying, okay, let me just escort you to your room. This is going to be it. By the age of 10, I realized that other people were being paid for the shit I was doing for free, all right? And I had a uncomfortable, difficult conversation with my parents around why I did not get a brown envelope every Friday and everybody else did, including my brother. And my parents then paid me from the age of 10. And I wish I kept it, but I never kept it. Do you know what I mean? I think I got, I don't know, I'm trying to think in shekels what it would be, and like US dollars what it would be, less than $1. Let's put it that way. That's what I got a week, all right? But I was super, super happy. And I watched my parents run these different businesses, because my dad had another business and my parents had a business. The hotel was my parents' joint business, but my father had a wholesale liquor business that he used to sell alcohol all over the show. And he never drank, which is a whole other story. But when I got clear around, oh, okay, I learned from being very little how to connect to people immediately, right? How to listen to what they were saying and how to mirror back to them that they felt comfortable, right? And I would remember stuff, and I do to this day, and it's not something I've been taught, it's something that just comes naturally to me. I will just remember that Donna has a dog that was, I won't know what the dog's name is, but I will remember that Donna has a dog. She lives near the beach. Do you know what I mean? The fact that her dog has been the star in a Netflix, series, whatever, that Donna flies back to Israel a lot of the time. It's there for me, right? And also that connection that ability for me to connect and for me to look at things in a different way, not because I've ever been trained to look at things in a different way, because I grew up in a very different way to other people. Do you know, I grew up very, very differently to other people. I could spend another 2 hours telling you stories about the hotel. Do you know what I mean? My parents left me in charge of the hotel when I was 12 years old and went away for the weekend. What were they thinking? Okay, I have no idea what they were thinking. I mean, now I'm like, it was child labor, but and I was quite comfortable, you know what I mean, to make the decisions, to look at the stuff, to do whatever. I did make a huge mess that weekend, but anyway, but it's kind of, does that make sense? All right. And ladies, that's my message for you today, right? Your superpower or superpowers come from your journey, all right? And they often don't come from the parts of your journey that have been easy. They come from the parts of your journey that have been incredibly difficult to work through, all right? And your superpower comes from you owning your journey, really owning your journey, the journey that you've been on. And somebody else spoke about vulnerability and being vulnerable enough to share around that journey. Do you know what I mean? Like share around that journey. And the only way that you can discover what your superpowers are is to sit down and write out your journey and look for those points in your journey that show you where you are different to others, all right? What are the things that you've done in your life that make you unique to you? I never used to tell people that I grew up in a hotel because it just came with too many questions. Do you know what I mean? And now I'm like, because I wanted to just be like everybody else. And only later in my life did I realize, holy shit, I'm never going to be like anybody else, because I was not allowed in the kitchen until I was 18 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't allowed to do anything in the kitchen. I was shooed out the kitchen. So yes, can I cook? Yes, I can. Am I domesticated? Hell no, I'm not domesticated. Okay, in the least, thank God I'm with somebody who isn't. And also that those other people that told me that I lacked the killer instinct, I don't lack the killer instinct. I just go about things in a different way. And I don't need to have the killer instinct to be successful. All right. And the fact that you believe that I do doesn't mean that I need to have the killer instinct. The fact that you think that being a chameleon is something that is negative is your issue, not mine. All right. That has saved my ass. I don't know how many times being a chameleon. You know what I mean? Like being able to change in the moment into, oh, this isn't working. What are we going to do now? All right. And then the last one is, you know, everybody talks about boundaries. You got to be careful about boundaries, because sometimes you can overgo on boundaries. You can become too boundaried, all right? And when you become too boundaried, then you push people away. You don't draw them in, they go away, all right? So I wanted to leave you with that today. It's not about doing, like kind of going through 5 journal prompts, you know what I mean, to figure out what your superpower is. It's about really looking at your journey and saying, okay, where in this journey can I see myself, right? And how do I bring my journey to the business that I have today, so that when I compete against other people, my journey and what is in my journey is the strategy, all right, that I use against the competitor. I see Nia's said something, so. Yep. Oh, I love it, Nia. No, that did not happen. Nia, can I tell you something? I figured out later in life why my parents bought a hotel, because my mother couldn't cook. So if we lived in a normal house, we would have all been dead, all right? She hated cooking. She couldn't cook. All right. My sister is like you. My sister is she's not a pastry chef by profession, but she's super accomplished, and she really took to the kitchen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I like cooking. I cook when I'm angry. Let's just leave it at that. All right. I cook things. So ladies, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to open it to questions. You know what I mean? So I suppose one of the questions somebody may have is, how do I use this with my clients? How do I introduce my clients to their superpower? Right. There's many different ways. Obviously, looking at, you know what I mean, looking at those pictures is one way. Another way is that I profile all my clients, right? And I'm very open about saying I use Myers-Briggs. I profile on Myers-Briggs. I also do a money archetype profile on people, because you need to understand how you do money, all right? And then we write your journey out, you know what I mean, your life story. We write your life story out. And then we merge all those things together to kind of really, really look. And then I use all of that to build your business in the way that works for you. So I'm going to give you an example. Jennifer Brown is on this call. Jennifer is not somebody who's ever going to go live on Facebook. So as a business strategist, I'm never ever going to ask Jennifer to go live on Facebook, all right? Because I understand her journey. I understand where it comes from. I understand her personality. I understand her money personality. I understand the way she operates. I understand everything. Jennifer is a writer, okay? So Jennifer will put out into the world her superpower through writing, right? Her journey through writing. Donna, on the other hand, is very different, okay? I would put Donna onto a Facebook Live every day of the week, all right? Would I ask Donna to write? Yes and no, do you know what I mean? But her superpower doesn't potentially lie in writing. Her superpower lies in communicating and connecting people to each other, right? And that's why you've also got to understand your superpowers, because you've got to build your business around what you bring to the table. And if you don't understand yourself and you don't understand the journey that you've been on, by Kirsten, and you don't understand the journey that you've been on, you will just go on to a cookie cutter exercise like everybody else. And when you cookie cutter, then guess what? I buy the cheapest cookie. Because you're all the same. So now what happens is price becomes the issue, right? I just want to look at the chat and see if there's anything there. Yeah. And Jennifer says having somebody who works with you understands that, okay, all right, is the thing. I mean, I've worked with people, and maybe some of you have, where I'm like, I'm never going to do that. Okay, why are you asking me to do that? I'm never going to do that, all right? Or I just become resistant. I'm like, that'll never work for my business, all right? But it would work for my business if I was a different person, all right? But I'm me, and I'm unique, and I have to work within my uniqueness. And my uniqueness, as I said, comes from my journey, and it comes often from the adversity. So, yeah. So, ladies, I hope you enjoyed that. Donna, I saw all the other ladies said that where you can find us on Facebook and Wada Wada Fish Paste. Okay, all right, I'm terrible with that part. Okay, so you can find me, the easiest way to find me is most probably on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, okay, called the Collective for Female Entrepreneurs, and I spend most of my time in there. Hopefully one of you wonderful women that are on this call have attended 3 and you win the prize that I've put in, because I have put in a prize, all right? And we get to continue the journey together for a week, you know what I mean, to go there, all right? And Nia, thanks so much for putting in your Facebook page. I'm going to go follow you straight away, all right? So yeah, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.